Happy Buckets and welcome to another episode of Losers Ball. I'm Ilan Shields and I'm alongside my good friend and co-host Ben Bremen. How you doing, Ben?
We're doing great today. NBA season around 2 weeks in. It's looking very interesting right now, I can tell you that.
For sure. But before we start, I just want to remind everyone that if you're not following us on Instagram, Twitter, or TikTok, then go drop a follow at Losers Ball Pod for content about NBA action, our episodes, and more fun NBA content. So Ben, as you said before, the NBA has been great so far, 2 great weeks of action, and just along these past few days, Curry the other night dropped 62 points and reminded everyone that he's still the greatest point guard in the NBA currently and that he's the best shooter of all time. John Wall played his first NBA game since 2018. Becky Hammon was the first woman in NBA history to serve as an active head coach in a regular season game. So there's been a lot of fun stuff going on so far. And I want to know, Ben, which team surprised you the most so far?
Well, I mean, going into the season, we spoke about who we thought would be, would be very strong or very weak this year. And the biggest surprises in a positive way for me have been the Phoenix Suns. I mean, going into the season, when they traded for Chris Paul, we knew that this was going to be a move that, would take them the next step, that would help Devin Booker, help DeAndre Ayton, and make the Phoenix Suns to be a very good team, especially in the Western Conference. They have that veteran presence by Chris Paul. And, as we've seen right now, that's helped Phoenix out along the way. When we made our predictions, I think we had Phoenix around like the 5th seed, 6th seed, making the playoffs. They don't have to worry about the qualifying tournament. But right now, as at the time of this recording, they're sitting at 5-2, second in the Western Conference. They just lost to, the first place Clippers yesterday. But I mean, they've been playing really well. They have had nice wins against the Nuggets, Jazz, and Pelicans, forming together really well, and I think they've been a very pleasant surprise so far this year.
Absolutely. I have to agree with you 100%. They've been exceeding all of my expectations. Chris Paul has done tremendous wonders for that team, and for the first time in what seems to be all of Devin Booker's career, there seems to be some real direction and real stability for that organization. Hopefully he won't have to go through another 7 head coaches before they find the right one. Monty Williams seems to be a good fit for them. Ever since that bubble run when they went 8-0, they seem to really be having a clear sense of direction. I've been blown away by them as well. For me, though, the surprise team of the season was the Atlanta Hawks, another young team, currently 4-2 as we record this. And they've had a really notable win against the Brooklyn Nets with a healthy Brooklyn Nets with both KD and Kyrie. The roster's deep. They had a few injuries and a few minor setbacks. Gallinari is just out for 2 weeks, but he'll be back soon. Onyeka Okongwu, the rookie, is injured, but he's also, I think, playing in the 3-on-3 games in the practices, and he should be back also within the next few weeks. And once he gets back, they'll have more front court depth. They've got currently 7 guys averaging 10-plus points, and they have a really full roster. I've been really impressed with what they've done, especially with no true superstar. Trae Young's looked phenomenal. He's taken another step forward in his 3rd year. He's averaging nearly 30 points and 8 assists. I've been really blown away with the team. They've been great offensively. They've been very good on defense as well. And their roster seems to make a lot of sense. They got a nice balance of veterans and young players. I'm really excited for this team. I think they're legit. I was expecting them to be around the 8th seed. We're fighting for that play-in tournament. But I think they'll be one of those top 5 seeds really guaranteed to be in the playoffs this year.
I mean, the season's only 2 weeks in, but I think, they are still exceeding expectations. The offseason moves have helped them tremendously, adding Bogdanovic, adding Rajon Rondo, Danilo Gallinari. The young players now have veterans to look up to, and that's really forming really well for them, going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that although it is early in the season, they've only played 6 games. I think that they are a legit team, and I think that this great start is one to stay. Unlike the Hawks, I think that one team that has surprised me so far, and I think they won't sustain this, is the Cleveland Cavaliers. So far, they've been great. Colin Sexton and Darius Garland have been a fantastic backcourt. Isaac Okoro, the rookie, has provided some great defense. Drummond's interior defense has been great. Love, before he got injured, was playing well. Larry Nance was playing well. They've really been putting it all out there. They're a fun team to watch, and I've been really, really enjoying watching them. I do think they're going to fall, but they did have some promising wins against the 76ers and also the Atlanta Hawks. I think that they're a fun team. I don't think it'll last. I think that they are a little too young for it to sustain the success, but I think it's one of those teams that they had a long break between when the regular season got postponed last year due to COVID to when they're starting now. They've got fresh legs. They're eager. They're ready to go, and I really think that although they may not sustain the success, they'll definitely be an NBA League Pass team, one you always want to watch and tune into. I've been very impressed with them so far.
So what? You're not hopping onto the Sexland bandwagon just yet?
I'm more onto the Trae Young bandwagon than the Sexton bandwagon. I think that although they're fantastic, I have Colin Sexton on my fantasy team. I don't think it's going to sustain itself. I think that in the future, this is a team to watch out for. This is a team that going into the season, I thought had a very, very bleak future with not so many promising stars to build around. But since the season started, Sexton and Garland have shown themselves that they can be true cornerstones. They've got some trade pieces. They can trade Kevin Love to a contender. They can trade Andre Drummond's expiring contract to a contender. I think that they have moves to make, and they're a fun team to watch going forward.
The future in Cleveland, is looking very bright. When LeBron left both times, the Cavs have just been an absolute train wreck, always being a lottery team year in, year out. But right now, it looks like the future's looking very bright for Cleveland. We're looking forward to seeing what they could do in the next few years.
Absolutely. I want to know, do you have any other teams that have initially taken you by surprise so far and impressed you?
Yes, all bias aside, I think the New Orleans Pelicans are really, surprising me. My predictions for this year with the Pelicans, I wasn't sure if they're going to mesh right away. I wasn't sure if they were going to be, like a 7-8 seed or 9-10, but I was assuming that they were going to have to play in the NBA play-in tournament. But right now, as we speak, as the time of this recording, they're looking very good. They just swept the Raptors for this year's playoff series, something that they haven't done in a while. Sorry, in this year's regular season. Ingram is looking phenomenal. He, ever since he signed the contract, signed his extension, he's just been balling out. And the offseason moves for New Orleans have really been paying off. Steven Adams has been an amazing presence in the paint. Eric Bledsoe has been playing well. And we're seeing all the young guys develop like Lonzo and Zion. If they could keep this core together, maintain, adding additional pieces, and this team could be a very, very strong team for the next few years. And I'm hoping that they could really keep it up.
Yeah, absolutely. Going into the season, I also was a little skeptical about the roster. Seemed to not make so much sense. There seemed to be a weird mix of non-shooters, people who can't stretch the floor, with players like Zion Williamson who needs to attack the paint. But they've really seemed to mesh well together so far. Steven Adams, as you said, has provided great protection in the paint, some great interior scoring. And Ingram, as you said, he's taken another step forward. Often we see when players sign these massive contracts, they'll take a little step back or they want to, improve as much as we expected them to. But Ingram has shown some tremendous improvement.
And also, I think bringing in Stan Van Gundy, bringing a new head coach, maybe that's what they need. Just wasn't working out with Alvin Gentry. A fresh voice is always good to start. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Stan Van Gundy's a defensive-minded coach. He's got some good defenders on the roster. Lonzo's a good defender. Eric Bledsoe's a great defender. Steven Adams can defend the paint well. And they've got some really good pieces that fit the style of play he wants. They're running the floor. They're constantly running fast breaks off defensive rebounds. And I'm really excited for what they're doing. I think that this new change of pace, this newly formed roster makes a lot of sense. Is it legit? Is it going to hold up? I don't know. But they'll definitely be playing for one of those play-in tournaments at the very least.
I mean, for the small sample size that we've seen, it's looking very well.
Oh, absolutely. We've spoken about teams that have pleasantly surprised us, but what about the teams that have disappointed you? Which teams would you like to have seen more from that just haven't really brought their A game to the first few weeks of the season?
It shouldn't really surprise anyone for these two teams that have battled us off, but I think it has to go to the biggest disappointment so far has to be the Toronto Raptors and the Washington Wizards. And the Raptors situation, they lost Marc Gasol, they lost Serge Ibaka in the offseason, but I don't think people weren't too worried because they thought that their younger guys were about to take the step forward. OG Anunoby signing an extension to Fred VanVleet, signing Siakam last year to an extension, but so far they just haven't made the leap yet. We're watching Raptors basketball that we haven't seen in years. Last time they started 1-4, I believe it was back in the 2012-2013 season, which, seems like an eternity ago for Raptors fans. But that was the last time that they were 1-4. Is it time to press the panic button just yet for the Raptors? I don't think so. I think you have to give it a bit more time, adjusting. Playing in Tampa without really any fans, maybe that's affecting their play. But so far, the Raptors they need a boost of confidence. And for the Wizards too, when they moved John Wall for Russell Westbrook, I think a lot of people had a lot of hype for that move. getting Westbrook. He's a more healthy player than Wall, as you mentioned. John Wall is only playing his first NBA game since 2018 now, so people were thinking that Bradley Beal and Russell Westbrook will be a nice duo. But right now, I believe, what are they, 1-5, 2-5 right now? They squeaked by Brooklyn yesterday, albeit late in the game. Right now, they're just not looking too good. They're losing to scrub teams like the Bulls, and they've blown a couple of games to the Magic too. And outside, as I was saying, Bradley Beal and Russell Westbrook, I don't know if they have enough supporting cast around them.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the Raptors, they've been such a model of success for the past 7-8 years that it seems that for them to start off 1-4 is a disaster of a season already. I do think that they could bounce back, but it seems that the loss of Serge Ibaka and Marc Gasol is a way bigger loss than people were anticipating. Those two guys really brought some stability in the front court. They brought a mix of offense, a mix of defense, leadership, and it seems that although Aaron Baines is a serviceable player and Chris Boucher has taken a nice leap forward, I still think that they're really missing out those cogs in the middle with Serge Ibaka and Gasol. Mm-hmm. The move to Tampa definitely might be an adjustment to them. Will they bounce back, or will they end up trying to lean into some sort of rebuild or not? Maybe they pull a trigger on the rumored James Harden trade. Who knows? And as for the Wizards, I was really high on them going into the season. I had them in the top 6, guaranteed to make the playoffs, and they've really just disappointed so far. My prediction right now, it's maybe not a hot take, but I think that Scott Brooks will be fired before the season ends. I think that he was hired by the past front office in Washington, by Ernie Grunfeld. Since then, there's been a new front office in charge, the one that hasn't hired Scott Brooks. They might want a new direction. They've already shown that they're willing to take a new direction by trading John Wall, a centerpiece of that franchise for so long. They might just go and fire Scott Brooks. I can really see that happening before the season ends, maybe sooner rather than later. That's my bold prediction.
Do you think it's time? Do you think, if this season doesn't work out, do you think the Washington Wizards blow it up?
I very much think so. I think that we might be seeing that Bradley Beal may not be as much of a alpha dog as a leader that we think he might have been at once. I think that Bradley Beal could be also traded. The front office has traded John Wall. This new front office can come and also trade Bradley Beal. He hasn't worked with John Wall. He hasn't worked with Russell Westbrook. They are similar players, but I can very much see them leaning into a more of a youth movement. They've got Rui Hachimura, who's a great sophomore. They've got Deni Avdija, who's a promising rookie. I think that they can really lean into rebuilding mode, especially that there's so many contending teams right now. It just seems to get a title in the current NBA is a bloodbath with so many teams competing, both in the East and the West. I can easily see them leaning into a rebuild, finding a coach that fits that, finding some players that fit that, going for a top pick in the draft. It's expected to be a good draft this year. I wouldn't be shocked if they start rebuilding, even by the middle of the season. Mm-hmm. One team for me, though, that's been quite a disappointment also is the Denver Nuggets. They're so far 2-4, and they really seem to be a team that's really missing Jeremy Grant. I didn't think that the Nuggets would miss Jeremy Grant too much. I didn't think he was that important, but he's now averaging 25 points a game in Detroit. They're using him like he's the number one option, and the Nuggets just haven't gone off to a hot start that everyone was expecting them to. They finished third in the West last year. They made it to the conference finals, and they're now 11th in the West. Again, it's only 2 weeks in the season, but Jamal Murray has definitely taken a step back from his strong bubble. Statistically, he's averaging less in basically everything compared to the bubble. And, Jokic, he's actually leading the league in assists. He's also averaging a triple-double, and he would easily be a favorite for MVP, or one of the, maybe not a favorite, but someone who's competing for that award. And with the Nuggets playing like they are right now, I really can't see that happening. Their shooting guard seems to be a bit of a mess. Gary Harris has been extremely underwhelming. He's supposed to be a 3-and-D kind of player that can, alleviate some of the stress from Jamal Murray and Jokic, so that those two guys can pass it to him when they're drawing some doubles or getting a lot of attention on offense. He's supposed to be that guy that can throw it off to out of a double team to hit a quick three. And on the season, he's averaging 12.5% from three. So that's got to be better. He's got to be better. It seems to me that they have a lot of stuff to still figure out. And I really, really think that as much as people overlooked the departure of Jeremy Grant and people thought that the Pistons may have paid him a little too much money, it seems to be that they're really missing out on what he brought to that team.
It's interesting that Denver's struggling this year. Last year's playoffs, what was it? The first 2 rounds, they played 14 games, back-to-back Game 7 series, and then, correct me if I'm wrong, but maybe just a bit of fatigue is showing for them. basically played a quarter of the season last year in the restart. Only had a few months off to recover. Maybe that's affecting them. Maybe that's contributing to the slow start. Also, once again, I don't think they should be worried at all. I think as the season goes on, Denver's really they're gonna start to click, and they'll be the Denver team that we know of from last year. But yeah, as you mentioned, a team that people thought would be contending for this year off to a 1-5 start too is looking very surprising.
Maybe skinny Jokic is gone and he's a little more out of shape. We know he's usually someone who always has to work himself back into game shape by the beginning of the seasons. He got really in shape for the bubble. Might have been he missed some food and he wanted to gain a few extra pounds, and he might have to work that back off again. But they have been disappointing. I'm not too worried. I'm not willing to make such a big deal over it. They've only played 6 games, but I just like to keep an eye out for. A few players also that have surprised me, from the first few games, has been the dynamic duo in Houston, not James Harden, but Christian Wood and John Wall. Despite Harden being unbelievable there, it's Wall's first NBA game since December of 2018, and in his first 2 games, he's looked fantastic. He's scoring the ball at will. His field goal percentage could be a little bit better, but he just has to get back into the rhythm of things. He's can shoot from the outside. He can drive inside. He's shown his defense and shown that he's an elite backcourt defender like we've seen in his Washington days. And Wood has literally just been outstanding. He's been even better than he was in Detroit. He's stretching the floor, dominating in the paint. He's defending well. And as weird it is it's very weird that Harden wants to leave this team, because this really might be the best roster he's ever had. He's got a solid big man who he can work the pick and roll with, and the big can also stretch the floor. He can send it out for a nice pick and pop, work some good 2-man action with him. He has another reliable ball handler who can drive and kick it out to Harden for some easy points. They have some of the key pieces from those past really successful Rockets teams in the past, like Eric Gordon, PJ Tucker. Danuel House is there. If Boogie can even resemble like 60% of what he was back when he was healthy, they can really make a convincing case for why Harden should really be the happiest in Houston, and that why Houston is the best option for where Harden should go.
Wait, so Ilan, I have a question for you. Which player coming back from an Achilles injury has impressed you more, Kevin Durant or John Wall?
Kevin Durant's been obviously the better player, but I honestly have been more impressed with John Wall. John Wall's game is very heavily reliant on athleticism. He's someone who likes to drive into the paint a lot, and those kind of players are usually who get affected by Achilles injuries the most. Kevin Durant, he's a historically great player. He's a historically great shooter, and even if he didn't have some of the athleticism he had back before the injury, I think everyone knew that he would be able to still shoot, still get off some great points, still carry an offense. He's also had they've both had extended period of times between the last games. KD had all the time off from when the NBA got postponed until, through the bubble until now. John Wall's had 2 years, and so I'm extremely happy and thrilled that they're both playing at an elite level, but I'm definitely more surprised that John Wall is playing like he is right now.
So, going forward, which other players have been the biggest surprise for you since the beginning of the season?
One other player that's really surprised me is Domantas Sabonis from the Pacers. The Pacers have been playing really well, and he's been a key part of that. He's been doing a little bit of everything. He's already had a triple-double in one of his games. They've had some really impressive wins, and I think he's really carrying the load for them. They've got some other great players like Malcolm Brogdon and Miles Turner and Oladipo who are all playing really well for them, but Sabonis seems to be the one who's, they're trying to work some offense through him. And I think that there was a big debate between him and Miles Turner of, it seemed that they couldn't really fit on a team together and that they would have to trade one of them. People weren't sure who they should trade between the two. I think it's very clear that Sabonis is the big man of the future. He's really shown to take that next step forward and to taking that leap. We've seen some great players. As I mentioned, Sabonis has been great. I've been very impressed with John Wall and Christian Wood. Some teams have been really impressing me. Some teams have been a little disappointing, as we mentioned. So if we had to recap these past 2 weeks, Ben, who would be your player of the season so far?
I feel like when we talk about player of the week, I feel like we're talking about players who are putting up huge numbers. Steph Curry put up 62 points yesterday. Kevin Durant's back. He's putting up numbers. James Harden, what did he score? 40-something in his return?
44.
44? But my player of the week, or player of the new season so far, I'm going to give it to a defensive player, and that's going to be Mikal Bridges from the Phoenix Suns. He's been an integral part. Yes, I'm giving defensive players some light here. He's been an integral part for Phoenix's hot start. no pun intended. And I was just scrolling on Instagram and came across some stats courtesy of NBA District. Their first 5 games, he's guarded Donovan Mitchell, Brandon Ingram, Luka Doncic, Buddy Hield, and De'Aaron Fox. Mitchell, he held to 3 of 10 shooting on 30 possessions. Brandon Ingram, 2 of 4 in shooting, 25 possessions. Luka Doncic, 4 of 7 shooting on 24 possessions. Buddy Hield, 0 for 3 on 17 possessions. And De'Aaron Fox, 1 for 5 on 16 possessions. These are the types of defensive players. They're not the types of people blow up the stat sheets with triple doubles or any significant numbers. But it's the numbers that you don't see that really makes these players very helpful for their teams, which is why I want to give him some light, and that's why he's my player of the week.
Congratulations, Mikal Bridges, on getting Losers Ball, the very first inaugural Player of the Week award. As the saying goes, defense wins championships, and Mikal, hopefully you can win some championships in your future. As you said, he doesn't have so many stats and he hasn't the flashiest stats, but what he's done so far in the season has been tremendous. He's shooting 46% from 3 on around 4 attempts a game, so he's really an elite 3-and-D kind of guy. He's putting up around 14 points a game, and he's truly is a defensive specialist. He averaged around a steal a game and a block and a half per game, so those are some great defensive numbers. He'll definitely be in the competition for maybe not defensive player of the year, but at least an all defensive team. And he's really helped the Suns get to where they are right now. They're 5-1, first in the league. And so, as flashy of players as the Suns have, like Chris Paul, Devin Booker, DeAndre Ayton, sometimes those defenders don't get all the praise. Here on Losers Ball, we look out for the little guy. We look out for the guys who don't get the praise, for the people who are, sometimes the 12th man off the bench or the worst player in the starting lineup. All 12 guys on the team we care about. Mikal Bridges, you get our first Player of the Week award. Congratulations.
You get the Ilan Shields 12th Man of the Week award.
So, Ben, we've spoken about some of the premier players like Chris Paul and Devin Booker. We've spoken about some of the players who aren't, the top players on their team like Mikal Bridges. And so I want to play this game with you called Batman or Robin. Essentially what it is that we'll each name a few players, and we have to just determine, are these guys the alpha dog on their team? Are they the Batman who can lead a championship team either now or in a few years to come? Or are they the Robin? Are they a great player, a solid number 2, but they still need to rely on someone else to get the job done? So we'll each throw out, I guess, 3 names at each other, a few names at each other. We don't know who the names are going into this, so it'll be a little bit of surprise. We had a huge list of different players who we can choose from, so we have a little bit of background, a little bit of homework that we did, but we still don't know who's coming our way. So I'll throw you the first name. I want to know, is Bradley Beal a Batman or a Robin? Can he be the alpha dog on a championship team, or does he need another elite player who's better than him to carry the load? What do you think?
I mean, it's kind of tough, when you're talking about Bradley Beal, because the Washington Wizards are nowhere near being a championship team. Bradley Beal's a player. I think he's more so of a Batman than a Robin. He could get you a bucket on demand. But it's really tough to say, playing on what we thought would be a much better Washington Wizards team. If you put him somewhere else, like in Toronto or Houston, and in those situations, I think he'd probably be a Robin, being in James Harden's shadow, and I think maybe even being in Kyle Lowry's shadow. But it's just very tough to pick for a player who's been on mediocre teams for his entire career. When John Wall was playing there, I think in the early years he was a Robin, but once Wall got injured, I think that's when we saw to see him become a Batman.
I think that he's currently is a Batman on his team, but here's my take. I think Bradley Beal on a championship team is a Robin. I think he's a good stats, bad team kind of guy. No disrespect to you, Beal, but he's had some quality rosters before. He's played with other All-Stars like John Wall. He's playing with Russell Westbrook right now. There obviously is a bit of a transition and a time to get adjusted to one another and get comfortable playing with one another. But he's had some good teams before, some solid rosters with some solid role players around him. And I really think that if he's your best guy, as elite as Bradley Beal is, as a scorer, as a defender, I still think that on an actual championship team, I think he's just a Robin. He's had opportunities where he can try to be the man, and as great as he's been statistically, and as many points as he scored, and he's leading the league or he's in top 3 in points per game. I think he was either 1 or 2 last year in points per game, and he wasn't an all-star. And I think there's a reason for that. I think it's because his teams aren't good enough. And often we'll blame the front office for not building a good team around a star. But we also sometimes have to give the responsibility and put the pressure on the players to, play well themselves and to carry a team. We've seen other players, other guards have carried their team at least to the playoffs. And Bradley Beal, without a fellow All-Star, hasn't really done that. He's in the prime of his career right now. I'm expecting more from him. Along with my take that Scott Brooks is going to get fired by the end of the season, I don't think that Bradley Beal is going to be on the Washington Wizards by the start of next season. I think he'll be traded between now and then. That's my hot take.
You're going to have to put these hot takes on sticky notes and put them on your wall. Later on in the year, we'll see whose takes have come to fruition.
My two predictions for the season have both to do with the Washington Wizards. Scott Brooks will be fired by the end of the season, and Bradley Beal will be traded by the beginning of next season.
I mean, you also think the Golden State Warriors are a playoff team too. We're not going to forget.
I'm not counting them out.
One.
Steph dropped 62. Draymond's back. I'm not counting them out yet. Teams have slow starts. I think they'll make the playoffs.
All right, so Ilan, I'm going to throw a bit of a curveball to you. This player is a rookie, LaMelo Ball. Do you see him becoming a Batman in the future, or will he be a Robin, or maybe even none of them? What are your takes on that?
As fun as LaMelo is to watch, and he can always put on a nice highlight, I think he's a Robin. I think that if he's your alpha dog, and if he's your Batman for a championship contender, your team is very limited. His shot looks off, and there seems to be some sort of mechanical issue in that. He doesn't really seem to have the full shooting range that people were hoping. And he's also extremely inconsistent. Again, that happens with rookies, and I'm not faulting him for that. These are some learning curves that he'll get by. But I think he'll be a fantastic Robin next to a Batman. If he has someone who can easily and effectively score from all over the court, he's the perfect Robin to have for that, because he can literally make a pass to anyone. He can find any open man the ball. He'll know how to get them involved. But his defense isn't there. I don't know if it'll ever get there to an effective point. And his shot seems to be off for now. So I think he's a Robin. He might make a fantastic Robin, but for me, he's a Robin.
I also don't think that it helps him that he's playing in Charlotte too, where players just can't seem to develop in that system. This could be a bad place for him to start.
But if LeVar's dream comes true that all the Ball brothers play there, maybe he won't care if he's competing for titles.
I don't know if we're going to be close to Charlotte winning a title anytime soon. I think maybe for LaMelo, his upside is he resembles somewhat of a Kemba Walker in Charlotte, but I think that might be a bit too generous for him.
Another play I want to throw out for you for Batman or Robin is Pascal Siakam. I'm a Raptors fan. I want to hear what you think about him. Take away all the biases. Is Pascal Siakam a Batman or a Robin?
I think if you asked me that question prior to the bubble, I think I would have said 100% he's a Robin now, but will turn into a Batman. But you're asking me after the bubble, as Raptors are 5-6 games into the regular season. I don't think he's any of them at the moment. I don't think you could trust him. Give him the ball, you need a bucket. I don't think he's your guy right now. I think Fred VanVleet and Kyle Lowry are probably the Batman and Robin of the Raptors, but Pascal's kind of like looking like an afterthought for them. Hopefully he can turn it around. Hopefully he can gain some confidence back. But right now, I don't see him. He's not even a sidekick. If you disagree with me, please chime in. No disrespect to Pascal, but I don't think he's a reliable player at the moment.
To say he's struggling, absolutely. To say he has flaws right now in his game and he's not performing as we all hoped for, absolutely. But to say he's not a Robin, that's ridiculous. We already seen he's a Robin. The Raptors won a title. Kawhi was the best player, and Pascal Siakam was the second best player in the finals. Fred VanVleet can maybe make an argument for that. Freddie did get that that one Finals MVP vote, but he's shown he can be a Robin in that situation. I agree. I don't think he can be a Batman. I think that going forward, I personally think that VanVleet will be the best Raptor moving forward. Once Kyle Lowry gracefully exits this elongated prime of his, but I think that Siakam has shown that he can be a great player, but he's also extremely streaky. He usually fouls a lot on defense and will bail out the offensive player. And, since the bubble, teams have shown that they can really strategize against him, that once you take away that spin move, he does have so many other points that he can counter with. His jumper isn't falling as consistently as people would like, and he doesn't really create as much for others, especially when his shots aren't falling. So as much as it pains me to say this, I don't think that Siakam is a Batman or will be a Batman, but I think he can not only can be a Robin, but already has shown that he is a Robin.
I mean, I think you kind of somewhat proved my point. Teams have figured him out. If you're a Robin, you're supposed to be a reliable sidekick. But if you're not even reliable anymore, then you're not even a Robin. Which is why I'm just very skeptical on him right now. Obviously, we're hoping he proves me wrong. We would love to see him get back to the 2018, 2019 Pascal Siakam. But right now, I just don't see it happening. I don't see him as a Robin right now.
Do I think he can bounce back? Absolutely. Do I think that him and Freddie can be the future moving forward? Absolutely. Are they going to be like Stockton and Malone? Maybe not that far, maybe not to that extent, but I think that they can be a nice dynamic duo that the Raptors can build around and build a nice core around them in the future.
Anyway, moving forward, Brandon Ingram, New Orleans Pelicans, Batman or Robin?
Before this season, I would probably said a Robin, but after the beginning of the season, he's absolutely a Batman. He has shown that he can score from anywhere. He's extremely unstoppable, and he's got the length and the frame that if he can improve his defense, he'll literally be unstoppable on both sides of the court. He's got a great roster around him. Him and Zion as a future is one fantastic future to build around. He's been compared to Kevin Durant, and that for very good reason. He's a lethal scorer, can score from anywhere in the court, and so far in the season has shown that he can carry a team, carry the offensive load, can score from anywhere when the team needs a bucket, can ice away the game when, it's a close game. I've been extremely impressed with him so far. For me, he's a Batman. How about you?
Yeah, I completely agree. I think it's his team right now. I don't even think it's Zion's team. I think it's Brandon Ingram's New Orleans Pelicans. Change of scenery has helped him out tremendously. He needed a better place to develop. New Orleans has been that place for him, showing why the Pelicans front office wants to build around Brandon Ingram, and he's really shown why he's worth that max extension. So I agree with you in that respect. Brandon Ingram is a Batman.
Yeah, absolutely. And as much as the NBA and 2K and everyone wants us to think that Zion is the face of the franchise, for now it's Brandon Ingram. Will Zion get there? Probably. He's a force to be reckoned with. But for now, Brandon Ingram is the definite best player on the team. He's the current All-Star. He's the one carrying that team, especially on the offensive side. So I agree with you. He's fantastic. One other player I want to throw at you, Jaylen Brown. We've seen him with Jason Tatum. We've seen him with Kyrie, with Kemba. Is he a Batman or is he a Robin? What do you think?
This one's kind of tough to say because, I like to see Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. I like to see them as equals in Boston. I think right now, most people would probably say that Jason Tatum is the Batman and Jaylen Brown's the Robin. But I wouldn't be surprised, if Jaylen Brown improves and he becomes, you just have two Batmans on that team. I think both players are very reliable. Jaylen Brown's very reliable. He's had a lot of experience. His rookie season going to the Eastern Conference Finals with Boston, playing against the Cleveland Cavaliers, and every year in year out he keeps on developing. So I see a lot of positive improvements for him, which is why I think down the line he could become the same level as Jason Tatum as a Batman.
I absolutely agree with you. Usually teams have Batman and Robins. I think the Celtics might have a Batman and Superman situation. Two alpha dogs on that team. I think it's like a 1A, 1B situation. Obviously, Tatum's the better player right now, but Jaylen Brown is a premier defender that can effectively score. He's a dog on the court. And in a different situation, he can easily be the best player on his team. If down the line him and Tatum split up, he can easily carry a team, I think. He's improved every single year. He's developed his game. He started off as a rookie as just a effective, sort of 3-and-D player who can attack the paint a little bit. And every single year he's taken a step forward. I really like what he's done so far, and he has a ton of playoff experience. He's been to the conference finals not once, but I think twice so far in his short career. Yep. I think that he's a fantastic player. I think that the Celtics have two dynamic players to build around. I'm very excited for that future.
All right, Ilan, to cap it off, Rudy Gobert. Rudy Gobert, is he a Batman or a Robin?
As Shaq pointed out, Rudy Gobert is an inspiration for all kids out there to be able to get $200 million for averaging 11 points a game. He's a Robin. He's a very, very limited offensive game. And yes, he can anchor your defense and your team defensively, but his offensive game is way too limited, reserved to really just the paint, that he can't be the best player on your team. If he's the best player on your team, especially in the modern NBA, your team will not be going that far. Maybe 30 years ago when it was a lot more post-centric of a style of play, he might have been able to do that. But now, in the way basketball is played and the way the NBA is run, all these different switches on defense, stretching the floor, I can't see Rudy Gobert being the best player on your team, especially if you want to compete for titles. Hats off to him for getting paid, but he is not a bad man. He is getting paid way too much money. And I'm happy for him, but I would also love to make $200 million to get 11 points a game. But then again, in my high school career, I couldn't average 11 points a game. So,
I mean, I feel like calling him a Robin is very generous. Like, I feel like, and to be called a Robin, to be your sidekick, you have to be, some sort of an offensive presence. But Gobert, I don't know if he's. I don't even know if I would consider him a Robin.
So what would you call him? The Alfred? Batman's butler?
I don't even know, honestly. I mean, that's kind of like saying like Steven Adams is a Robin too. I would say they're more or less very similar type players. Players that'll give you great defense. They're not going to blow up the stat sheet, but they're more so like behind the scenes. But would you consider Steven Adams to be a Robin in New Orleans?
He's still an elite player, though. He's been an All-Star. He's won Defensive Player of the Year a few times. He's definitely better than Steven Adams. As we given our Player of the Week award earlier in the episode to Mikal Bridges for defense, especially. Defense does win you championships. There are two sides of the ball. There's the offensive side and the defensive side. If he has an elite offensive player who can score, and he can be there to pick up all the loose balls and to get some easy buckets, he can for sure be a Robin. He's a fantastic player, an elite player. Let's not minimize what he's done so far.
Ilan defending Rudy Gobert with the slander. I like it. I like to see that.
Listen, Shaq made some good points, but he still is an elite defender.
We want to hear from you guys. Who's the Batman? Who's the Robin of this podcast? Let us know at LosersBallPod on Twitter, Instagram, or TikTok.
Reach out if you guys want to hear other players for us to debate between Batman and Robin. We would love to debate them all. Please reach out to us on all social media platforms: Twitter, Instagram, TikTok at LosersBallPod. Like Ben said, it's been a fantastic episode. I've had a great time. Ben, it's been great.
I've had a great time. We're looking forward to next week's episode.
And to our dedicated fans in Norway, hot det. Till next week, have a good one.
Have a good one. See you next Tuesday.